How's it going, everybody? Time for another round of undocumented changes. The video series has evolved a little over time. There have been plenty of times when we were unsure when a change has actually occurred. This patch, last patch, 17 patches ago. Sometimes a change is just so minuscule or obscure that it takes a while to even realize it happened. So, while all of these are undocumented, some of them could also be just categorized as newly found. More on that when we get to one of them. And it is currently Wednesday at the time of me doing this commentary here, and I just found out that there will be a hotfix patch tomorrow, for you probably yesterday on Thursday. That will fix a lot of issues that I had planned to show you. Two things before we get to it. The list of undocumented changes was a lot shorter this time, and second, it's been a while since we had such a quick response when it comes to hotfixing things. Last time was probably the damage numbers during the core combat update implementation. But usually Ubisoft waits for larger patches to include these hotfixes. Guess that is a nice surprise this time. But first of all, we start with one that for sure was implemented mid-season. Yes, I'm finally going to talk about the Tiandi kick change. Lots and lots of people have found this, and many of you did let me know about it. Also, quite a few were a little confused, even angry, when I didn't mention it in the patch rundown. There's always an appropriate time for things, so while many players have found this change, also a lot seem to be quite angry about it. Tiandi is ruined now, kick is unusable. I think some perspective is needed. First of all, what was the change? Tiandi's kick had lost a lot of its range. To be precise, the range your opponent gets kicked. And the wake up time also seems shorter. It looks more like you kick a target with the rock steady feed active. So, do I think this nerf was needed? No, absolutely not. Do I think this in any way, shape or form ruined Tiandi? No, a non-existent mix-up got worse. That is far from the end of the world for Hero. And like I mentioned at the beginning, yesterday's patch should have reverted this back to how it was. Why it made it in? We can only speculate. So let's do that real quick then. Before Warmonger's release, we had some changes to Nusha's infection. Quite unexpected ones. So maybe the new hero will have a kick of some sorts, and that hit reaction somehow managed to make its way into the life build. We know their version control, so this wouldn't be all that surprising. Who knows? We'll see in the future whether the new hero has some form of knockdown move. As it is right now, we're having a similar scenario as we faced with the punch-through changes. An undocumented, unintended change that, in punch-through's case, buffed it massively. For Tiandi's kick, it was the opposite. It made an already quite bad mix-up an even worse one. In both these instances, Ubisoft decided to not take the opportunity and fix them. With that I mean bring it to a state of somewhat balanced. Instead, it's now back to being regarded kinda useless, both for the kick as well as punch-through back then. The kick is useless in a 1v1 except as a ledging tool. It only has pressure with a wall, spikes or a ledge behind your opponent. In any other scenario, there's absolutely no need to dodge the kick, as it doesn't guarantee any damage unless you count that frame perfect forward dodge light input. Other than that, it might be somewhat usable with teammates around, as it can guarantee 2 heavies, or moves like Hammer Slam or Eagle's Talon. So yeah, maybe it's not the right time to criticize that, I just wish they'd used these opportunities. For Tiandi's kick, it obviously was a little more complicated than few number changes. But still, let's hope for a better implementation in the future. But moving on, Gauntlet has gotten a few changes that I've went over in my patch rundown, and one of those was the removal of the hole on the C point. Problem now was that parts of the former hole didn't count as being on the point, as you can see with the shifting, contesting and boosting hit. Next, also on Gauntlet, it seems to be a Jongjun specific thing, but his enormous hitboxes do bounce on the trapdoor bridges, more specifically his top attacks. JJ players should be more than familiar with hitting walls, but hitting floors is probably something new. I don't really play the hero, and it's not like you actually fight on these platforms all that much. if at all actually. So if that's been a thing since forever, let me know. We did try other heroes, but hitboxes were never big enough to cause the same issue. And do remember, this counts as a superior block on JJ, so go and GB them. Moving on to something that was recently discovered, it has been a thing for probably years. Righteous Deflection at tier 2 feat that, according to the description, does give you damage reduction after a parry. And that it does. What we've never noticed though, is that it does give a tiny bit of revenge on activation. Not on every parry, but only when it gets activated. And it does work in 1v1s, which can explain some weird interactions. In case you are not familiar with how revenge works or is supposed to work, I've made a video recently explaining everything in great detail, so check that one out if you haven't yet. I can promise you, you will learn something. Looking through old clips, I found one from this year's April Fool's event on Hito, and it's been a thing back then as well. Whether this is intended behavior or a bug that's been overlooked for many seasons, I can't tell. It's not a particularly popular feat and overshadowed by others on most heroes. Up to Ubisoft to decide whether this stays or gets removed. Then for a change that was mentioned on the bug reporter but not in the patch notes. In case you're unfamiliar with the bug reporter, again, there is a video where I explain it. Point is, you can check there to find issues that are labeled as scheduled or fixed and then check which patch they're supposed to be included. This time an evergreen got fixed. Invisible minion collisions. I could have sworn that I still had issues against the event minions, especially the scarecrows, but that might have just been me not being used to Valkyrie in mid. But even if it isn't completely fixed, it seems to have gone down dramatically. Keep me updated if you're someone that frequents the mid lane a lot. And then one last cosmetic change, the fire breathing signature now has a slightly changed torch placement for female heroes. Here you can see a side by side. Like I said in the beginning, this patch had less undocumented changes and also quick fixes. Whether this reflects back on the patch size itself, better control from Ubisoft or whatever else, decide for yourself. Whether this hotfix patch introduced anything new remains to be seen. We'll definitely keep an eye out for additional changes. Other than that, this weekend is another round of the open qualifiers for the Minion series, so good luck to all participants and have fun watching to everyone else. I'll keep it at that for now. I hope the video was helpful. Thanks for watching. Laters everybody.